I didn't start out wanting to ruin him. Honestly, I never thought it would go this far. But when you've been underestimated your whole life, when people think you're just some girl, someone to overlook, someone to use, sometimes you have to remind them what real power looks like. You see, it wasn't about money or revenge. It was about proving that I belonged, that I had the right to stand in that room, to take what was mine. And in the end, I made him cry in court, but not before I took half of everything he thought he owned. He never saw it coming, not until it was too late. But let me start from the beginning. I'm not your average story. My life didn't start in privilege. In fact, I grew up in a place where people like me weren't expected to make it. They thought I'd stay small, stay quiet, stay in my lane. But ambition, that's something I've always had. Ever since I was little, I knew I wasn't meant to be a background character in someone else's story. There was a fire in me that told me I could do more, be more, even if the world didn't always agree. People like me, black women especially, don't always get the chance to rewrite their narrative, but I was determined to do just that. Before I go deeper into my story, I want you to know something. If you've ever been told you're not enough, or that your dreams are too big, then this story is for you. If you're ready to see what real power looks like, what it means to take control when everyone else doubts you, hit that like button and subscribe. This isn't the story they want you to hear, but it's the one you need to. Trust me, I didn't grow up with silver spoons or safety nets. There were no fancy schools, no powerful last name to open doors. Just me, my mom, and a whole lot of struggle. We lived in a cramped apartment with leaky ceilings and thin walls, where you could hear every argument on the floor below. But somehow, even with all that noise, I heard something louder, my own voice telling me, "You're meant for more than this." That voice never stopped. Not when I was cleaning tables after school, not when I was watching others get ahead just because they knew the right people. I didn't have connections, but I had something better: drive. Being a black woman, you get used to being doubted. People smile at you with pity. Or worse, they look straight through you like you're invisible. But I wasn't invisible. I was watching, learning. I figured out real quick that the world doesn't give power to women like me. You've got to take it. You've got to know your worth, even when no one else does. Every no I heard growing up just added fuel to my fire. I started to see rejection not as a stop sign, but as a dare, like the world was daring me to keep going. And I did. I taught myself everything I could: business, finance, strategy. While other kids were out partying, I was studying YouTube videos on how to pitch, how to negotiate, how to win. I didn't care about fitting in. I cared about building something that couldn't be taken from me, something that was mine. So by the time I stepped into his world, I wasn't some naive little girl. I was a storm in heels, and he had no idea what was coming. I met him on a night I almost didn't show up. It was one of those networking events where everyone's pretending to be someone, and I was already tired of fake handshakes and empty smiles. But something told me to go. So I did, and there he was, surrounded by people hanging on his every word, laughing too hard at his dry jokes, treating him like he was royalty. I didn't even know who he was at first. All I saw was a man who was too used to being the most powerful person in the room. That didn't impress me. If anything, it made me curious. He noticed me because I wasn't trying to impress him. I wasn't playing the game, not like the others. I spoke with confidence, but I didn't flatter. I didn't need to. I knew what I brought to the table, and for a man like him, that was intriguing. He asked questions, and I gave sharp answers. I wasn't rude, but I wasn't soft either. I could tell he wasn't used to women like me. That night, I walked away without giving him too much, just enough to stay on his mind, and he reached out the very next day. That was the beginning. What started as a business conversation quickly turned into something more layered, more dangerous. He wanted to mentor me, he said. said he saw potential, but I knew what he really saw. Someone he could shape, mold, maybe control. What he didn't realize was, I was never looking for a mentor, I was looking for a mirror, someone who could show me the level I was meant to play at. And he gave me that, without even knowing. From the moment we met, I was already planning my next move. He just didn't know he was part of it. At first, I let him think he was in control. That's how you get close to people like him. You feed the ego, you nod just enough, you let them believe they're leading. I studied him like a textbook. Every time he talked business, I listened with more than just ears. I watched his body language, clocked how his confidence rose when he felt admired, and how it dipped when he sensed challenge. I learned what made him tick, what made him careless, what made him dangerous, and most importantly, I learned where the cracks were in his empire. He thought I was his project. He said I reminded him of himself, but with more fire. That made me laugh inside. If only he knew. I was taking notes while he was bragging. I was building while he was talking down to me. The deeper I got into his world, the more I saw just how fragile it all was. His empire looked bulletproof on the outside, but behind the scenes, it was a game of smoke and mirrors, and I knew exactly where to blow. He underestimated me. That was his biggest mistake. He thought I was just another girl who got lucky, pretty, sharp, but not a real threat. So I used that. I let him believe I needed him. I let him teach me his strategies, his secrets, his shortcuts. I played my part so well, I think I even fooled him into thinking I was grateful. But I wasn't. I wasn't there to be saved. I was there to learn the game from the inside and flip the whole board when the time was right. By the time he started realizing the shift in power, it was too late. I had already moved my pieces. I wasn't just in his world anymore. I was quietly taking it. There's a moment, right before a storm hits, where the air goes completely still. That's how it felt the day everything shifted. He didn't see it coming. He couldn't. He was too busy trusting the image he had of me. The quiet girl in the background, the one who nodded, who smiled, who played her role. But I had been building something behind the scenes, something real, something solid. I studied every contract he signed, every loophole, every silent partner. Piece by piece, I built my leverage. And when it was time, I pulled the trigger. It started with a board meeting. He walked in confident, like always, until I slid the documents across the table. Silence, then confusion, then anger. I wasn't emotional. I didn't raise my voice. I simply laid out the facts. How I had gained controlling interest, how the shares had shifted, how half of what he thought was solely his no longer was. The legal team backed me. The paperwork was airtight. All he could do was sit there, gripping the arms of his chair like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. The betrayal, it wasn't sudden, it was slow, strategic, and perfectly legal. And it wasn't personal. Not really. It was about survival, about power, about showing him and everyone else that I wasn't a pawn. I was the player. He tried to fight back, of course. Called in favors, threatened lawsuits, tried to paint me as disloyal. But the truth doesn't need to shout. It just stands. And I stood firm. I didn't steal from him. I outmaneuvered him. Every step I took was inside the rules he thought only he understood. And when it was done, when the dust finally settled, I didn't just take half his empire. I took back everything the world told me I couldn't have. By the time we ended up in court, the media was all over it. Headlines everywhere. They couldn't get enough of the drama. Young black woman takes down billionaire. Power couple turned enemies. But they didn't know the half of it. The courtroom wasn't just about business anymore. It was about pride, control, and image. He wasn't fighting for the company. He was fighting to save face. And I was fighting for every woman who's ever been told to stay quiet, to stay small. I remember the first day, sitting across from him. He wouldn't look at me. His lawyers did most of the talking, throwing around words like betrayal and malicious intent. But I had my own team, and I came with receipts. Everything I did, I documented. Every decision, every signature, every move had a paper trail. There was no scandal, just a strategy. And it was tight. The judge saw that. The jury felt it. And him? He started unraveling right there on the stand. At one point, under pressure, his voice cracked. And then it happened. He said my name. Not in anger, not in power, in desperation. And I knew right then I had won. Not just legally, but symbolically. He finally saw me, not as some assistant, not as a pretty face, not as someone he could mold, but as the threat I had always been. The verdict came down in my favor. I walked out with half of what he built, legally, rightfully mine. But more than that, I walked out with something no judge could ever give me: validation. For every time I was told I was too loud, too bold, too ambitious. That courtroom wasn't just his loss, it was my beginning, and it was loud, undeniable proof that I belonged in every room he tried to keep me out of. When the court doors closed behind me, it was like stepping into a new world. Not just because I had won, but because I had changed. The girl who once second-guessed every move was gone. What remained was a woman who had taken on one of the most powerful men in the industry and walked away, not just standing, but thriving. People started reaching out. Some congratulated me in whispers, afraid to be too loud. Others were bold, offering business deals, partnerships, platforms. Suddenly, the same rooms I used to beg to be in were opening up without a knock. But let me be honest, it wasn't all applause. Some people called me cold, ruthless, said I played dirty. But they never said that when he did it. They only say that when the woman wins, especially a woman like me. But I didn't lose sleep over it. I wasn't trying to be liked. I was trying to build something that couldn't be taken away. And that's exactly what I did. I reinvested what I gained, launched new ventures, created opportunities for women who looked like me, who had the vision but not the access. I didn't just take half an empire. I used it to start one of my own, one where the rules are different, where power is shared, and where no one gets to tell you you're too much. Looking back, I don't feel sorry for what happened. He played the game and I played it better. I didn't destroy him, I outgrew him. And if that threatens people, so be it. My win wasn't about him. It was about becoming everything I was told I couldn't be. I'm not just the woman who made him cry. I'm the woman who proved that power doesn't ask permission. It takes its seat at the table. Sometimes I sit back and think about that girl, the one who walked into that networking event not knowing it would change her life. She had no power, no status, no backing, just hunger, just grit. And now, I've built something real, something lasting, not just for me, but for every woman who's ever been told to wait her turn. My story isn't about revenge, it's about awakening. It's about showing up in a world that wasn't built for you and building anyway. And let's be real, this wasn't easy. There were nights I cried in silence, days I questioned myself, moments when it felt like the world was stacked so high against me I couldn't breathe, but I kept going. I didn't let their fear of me become my fear of myself. And that's what I want you to take from all this. You don't need to come from money, or connections, or a big name. You just need to know your worth and never, ever let anyone talk you out of it. I didn't win because I was the smartest. I won because I was the most prepared. Because I knew how to listen, how to learn, and when to strike. And most of all, I knew who I was, even when they didn't. So if you're out there, feeling small, feeling unseen, this story is your reminder. Your power is real. It might be quiet right now, but that doesn't mean it's not coming. And if this story lit something in you, if it reminded you who the hell you are, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs it. Because this This isn't just my win. This is all of ours, and we're just getting started.